This is Greta Talk, and it is not on the record at 7 p.m., which is Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. I just said 7 p.m. This is Greta Talk, where we have a chance to talk to people in greater depth and learn a little bit more. And today we have a great guest. We have a man who has the most impossible job, although he's going to deny it. Steve Greenberg. He's talking about his client, Sergeant Drew Peterson. Nice to talk to you, Steve.
How are you?
I'm well. Okay, the question everyone always asked me, how can you represent those people?
Really?
What's your answer?
You know what? Let me tell you very quickly. So the same day that this all blew up last week, and Drew got charged with this additional charge.
Trying to kill the... wait, we should say what the additional charge is to kill the prosecutor.
Right. My day started out in the morning representing a guy called Wayne Washington, who I've represented for a number of years, who was convicted of murder in 1992. I did not do the case. And on Monday morning, the Cook County State's Attorney decided he didn't do it and vacated his conviction. So when people ask me, how can I do this stuff, it's because it's not all representing people who are guilty. Some of it is about doing what you think is right. And there's lots of reasons still to represent people who are guilty. But that's probably a discussion better given at a law school discussion.
You know, Steve, I always tell people a lot of guilty people go free. A lot of innocent people get convicted. It's not a one-way street. Mistakes are made both ways.
That is absolutely correct.
Right. Now,
it's awful when it happens.
Indeed, it is awful. All right, your client, Sergeant Drew Peterson, now in hotter water than he was in before, assuming the prosecution proved the case, but I'm sure that you'll say that it cannot. What he's accused of is, while in jail, taking out a contract or asking a hitman to kill the prosecutor. Is that essentially what the charge is?
The hitman, I think, would be a fellow inmate.
Okay. Usually when you have witnesses in prison, they got a little problem themselves, so they wouldn't be in prison. So do you know who the witnesses are who say your client, Sergeant Drew Peterson, did this?
I do not know any details about that aspect of the allegations. I would suspect that before they'd bring a charge like this, they would have somebody on wire. Typically, that's the way it works. I certainly hope they don't have anyone on wire on this case. I like to, we've thought all along that we were going to win the appeal in this case. And it would be an awful shame if we were to win the appeal and then he were to get sentenced to as much or more time for this charge.
And by the appeal, you mean from the conviction of, he was convicted for murdering wife number 3. Is that what Kathleen Savio was, number 3?
Right, wife number 3, correct.
And I should say, they never dug too deep into the death of wife number 1 or 2, the one who had the car accident, right?
Well, they didn't die.
All right. No, I thought the one in the car accident, didn't she die?
I think a boyfriend died.
Oh, well, he's got...
Of one of those... But I never dug too deep into it either. And, of course, my position is that Stacy's probably still at Walmart shopping.
Right. And Stacy, that would be wife number 4, the missing one, which is how I met Drew Peterson. And I have to tell you, I've done a lot of these cases, defense lawyer. I sat alone with your client in his house one night, and he told me the most cockamamie story about where Stacy was. He said that she left taking her passport and her bikini and left.
I've heard that story.
That was a bad one.
I think I heard that story on your show.
Right.
When I was watching it. I don't know, Greta. I've known you a long time. As much as I like you, I don't know that I'd invite you to sit at my kitchen table if I was being investigated for murder.
I don't think so either. He volunteered that. It's like that was his story. I didn't say, is it true she left with a bikini and a passport? I just said, where is she? And he said, I don't know. She took her bikini and left with a passport, probably off with some guy. Right.
It doesn't change the fact, whatever people may think about whether he did the crime he was convicted of and whatever happened to Stacy. I am steadfast in my belief, and I'm not just saying this because I represent him. I think a lot of people agreed. Watching the trial, there was very little evidence against him.
Well, a trial should be fair, play by the rules. That's that I'm 100% behind. But tell me, what is the issue? Is there a narrow issue on the appeal from the murder of Kathleen Savio?
I think we, of course, raised reasonable doubt, but there's a couple of other issues. There was an issue of some clergy privilege. There was marital counseling with a pastor, and some statements came in. But the main issue...
Which, oddly enough, I was part of that, too. You know that, don't you?
I didn't.
Is that Neil somebody or other, a pastor...
Neil Shorey.
He came to me, and he told me that she being... wife number 4, my memory may be a little spotty on this, had said something like she was afraid of him or something like that.
Right.
Something like that. And my memory is, I mean, it's a good thing this isn't in the courtroom because my memory could be really wrong on this one. But I remember being I actually interviewed the pastor, and we discussed whatever it is that he said, she said to him, as well as when it was in relation to her disappearance.
It was... quite some time before she disappeared, at least several months before she disappeared. And the reason it was admitted was because it took place at a Panera Bread. And so the judge didn't feel that there was any desire to keep it quiet because it was at a Panera Bread. I can
meaning
tell you
that it wasn't, meaning to the listeners that it wasn't privileged so that he could tell what it is.
So he could tell what it is, right? Because it wasn't obviously in the confessional, but I have met with clients at Panera Bread over a cup of coffee and a noodle soup, and I certainly hope that I'm not waiving the attorney-client privilege by meeting with them there. So that's an issue, but really the main issue is the ineffective assistance of counsel. The lawyer, Harry Smith, who Stacy talked to, who we successfully kept the prosecution from calling. The judge said they couldn't call him, and then my co-counsel thought it was a great idea to call this guy so that the jury could hear, in Stacy's words, how Drew had supposedly killed Kathleen.
Why would your co-counsel, that's Brodsky?
Yes.
Why would he have called Harry Smith to have Harry Smith say that? That seems like the last thing you want the jury to hear.
Thank you. I hope you're on my appellate panel.
No, I mean I can't. I'm trying to figure this out to make sure I have this straight. Why would you call a witness that's going to essentially, convict your client?
That is a good question. The reason he has given, including when he was called at the post-trial motion for ineffective assistance, was because she also said during that conversation, can we use this to my advantage if I get divorced from Drew? So he felt that he would just show she was an extortionist who would say anything to anyone. I don't know that makes any logical sense at all. I have absolutely no idea why. Inexperience, nerves, craziness, I don't know.
Well, now you and the lawyer, this goes a little bit off the beaten path, but are now had a breakup right since then. I mean, you guys are at each other's throats and at war.
I am not. I filed a motion saying that I thought that it was ineffective assistance to call this witness, and I said to Drew, there was actually, he was required to waive any conflict in court. Because I was one of the lawyers who was on the team at the time the decision was made, but he wanted me to stay in the case. And I filed a motion saying that it was ineffective, and I actually got sued for libel.
By Brodsky, by your co-counsel.
Brodsky, right, which the case got thrown out. But in all the years you've been doing, have you ever seen a lawyer sue another lawyer for saying that he was ineffective or did a bad job?
No.
Other than malpractice.
Brodsky had I remember at the time, and look, we booked him on our show all the time because he was willing to get on and say stuff. It's like,
right.
I said I always have sort of a peculiar view of all this stuff. I feel two ways. One is I'm happy to have the booking, happy to get the facts out, happy to do what I can for the audience. And on the other hand, I think to myself, why is that person coming on and saying these as the lawyer? That's what I mean sometimes.
Right. And I agree. I did commentary for a number of years on different legal shows and so forth, and I always was very careful to try and sort of not get too critical of anyone's strategy or anything like that. I was very critical of that strategy, actually, before I got involved. And once I got involved, there was none of that went on. Although there was still the stuff with the sunglasses and all of that. I will tell you that it was when we were doing the trial, and we would do our conferences, people afterwards, our press conferences every day. We'd wear sunglasses. The sun was actually in our eyes. It was very hot. It was August. Some people saw it as a shtick too. There's different ways to do all sorts of things.
I don't remember the sunglasses. Although I probably, if you showed up at the sunglasses every night at a press conference, I probably would have poked fun at you too.
I'm sure you probably did. The trial was an interesting experience. The problem with this is I think we're going to win the appeal, and then he's going to have all these other issues now. There's just no reason why he would want this prosecutor killed. It just makes no sense.
Well, but a lot of stuff doesn't make sense. I mean, a lot of people could say, and this is not a courtroom where we have rules of evidence, but a lot of people could say is that a lot of people get divorced. They don't murder their spouses. Now, I know you say they didn't murder Kathleen Savio, and of course, Stacy, the fourth wife, has never been found. I presume her dead. I could be wrong, but I presume she's dead. And you got another wife who was in a weird car accident. So, I mean, why would looking at it from one perspective is like, why would he kill the prosecutor? Why are all his wives dead, missing, or in car accidents? But
right,
but odds are not what we talk about in the courtroom.
Right. That's the problem with it. I just, the timing of it is so odd because it came just after we finished the briefing and the appeal. But we'll see. Maybe there's some story there. I'm sure they've got some evidence to bring this kind of charge. They didn't bring it federally, so maybe there's some issues with it. Maybe it's just talking, amongst, hey man, I'd like to see something happen to that guy. I don't know. I have not talked to him. They've restricted his phone privileges.
Who? You can't talk to your client?
Well, we're going to get through that issue. Yes, they say come in person, and the prison is about 6 hours away.
Where is he being held?
He's being held in Menard, which is southeast of St. Louis, on the Mississippi River.
How's he doing in prison? Is he well liked, or is he not well liked? Is he in solitary in the general? What's the story?
He's in a special unit, which is a segregated unit by choice, because he didn't want to have interaction with other people. So that's another reason that this becomes so shocking that there would be these allegations. His former counsel, who's no longer on the case,
Brodsky,
says that this is obviously the act of desperation of someone who feels there's no hope and knows he's going to lose his appeal.
He said that? Brodsky said that about his client?
Yes.
Well, now that's a problem. I mean, he shouldn't be trash talking his client, even though he's no longer the active lawyer. What's he trash talking his client about?
That's a good question. I don't know, and I don't feel like getting sued again.
All right, we'll leave that one. We'll leave that one alone then. All right. So, how often do you get to talk to Drew?
When I need to talk to him, I talk to him. I don't have to talk to him that much. I told him at the outset, I'm your lawyer. I'm not your babysitter. I'm not doing your all your errands, running your errands on the outside world, and handling your affairs. He's got a son who can do that.
What is the son? Now, there was the son. Is that the one who supposedly there was some testimony helped move a barrel?
No, that was a nephew or a cousin who supposedly did that. His son, he had given, after Stacy disappeared and the police started sniffing around, he gave his son a couple of guns. And his son ended up getting charged with taking these guns with a felony offense, which I tried and I won that case. But his son was also a police officer, and they fired his son from being a police officer because he helped his dad to put these guns away or something like that.
As for the cousin or the nephew, now that was extremely, my memory's foggy, suspicious, because the thinking was at the time of the allegation that Drew had stuffed Stacy in a barrel and taken her someplace. And then I think there was some suggestion that this cousin or nephew said he had helped move a barrel, but then the cousin or nephew had some problems himself. Was it mental problems?
He was a drug addict and some other things, and then he tried to commit suicide. And then the police came and talked to him, and he said, I tried to commit suicide over, what I had done. It's actually, they always say a blue barrel. It's like, I think they're talking about one of those Tupperware containers, not Tupperware, but plastic containers like you would get at Target to store things in, the larger size. And that's one of the reasons why I don't believe that story, because in order to fit a body, even a petite body, into a container like that, you would literally have to dice the person up. With not trying to be gross, but if you dice somebody up, you'd think that, they came through with every bit
they would
of
have found residue.
known to mankind.
They would have found something, hair, fiber, blood, something.
Right, blood,
trace
anything.
evidence.
Cleaner, anything, yeah, and they found nothing.
And what was his sentence for the murder of Savio? He didn't get the death penalty, did he?
No, we don't have the death penalty in Illinois anymore. We got rid
that's
of it
right. Did he get it, and then it was vacated, or he never got it?
No, he never got it. He got what I think they were planning originally was to try him on Savio, which they felt was the harder case for them to win. And then if they won that, they would have indicted him for Stacy and perhaps asked for the death penalty.
Without a body.
Because a second murder would have gotten you the death penalty or life in Illinois back then. But they got rid of the death penalty in Illinois. So.
Right. Suppose he loses his appeal.
Do you know when?
What?
Did you hear? I probably shouldn't say this, but did you hear that when they were supposedly carrying the blue barrel down the stairs, Brian Williams was there?
I did not hear that. Is that true, or are you teasing me?
No,
I think you're teasing me. Yes, I think you are. Who
knows? I felt like obligated to throw in a Brian Williams joke.
Well, there you go. You threw in your Brian Williams joke. For a second, you almost got me because we're all, the fact that I was inside his house makes it plausible that somebody would be there. All right. Okay. So let's assume he loses his appeal on the Kathleen Savio, exhausts every appeal, loses every appeal. Is there anything that the state would bargain with him in exchange for information about the disappearance of Stacy? Is there anything they could do for him? Because I think the family of Stacy probably wants to know what happened to her. I know he says he didn't do it, but let's say hypothetically he did do it. Because what could he bargain?
I don't know. I've never had that discussion with them, and they've never asked me that question.
Does he hate me? Has he hate me? He must hate me because I was pretty tough on him, as I actually thought I should be.
I haven't talked to him about you either. I'm sorry.
There you go. All right. So
it doesn't. How he feels about people, like, dislike, whatever. It's not going to help him on his case.
No. But but I want to interview him, and so I was actually just sort of trolling to find out, whether or not there's a possibility. Because he's a pretty arrogant guy. As I sat in the house, in fact, I was in the house with him another occasion too, in another room, talking to him. He's an arrogant guy. On the other hand, I think he's probably a little bit afraid of me because we were instrumental in the whole reopening of the Kathleen Savio investigation, because I was doing I was working on the Stacy disappearance. And the family of Kathleen Savio brought me the coroner's report. I took a look at the coroner's report, and I said, this most pathetic coroner's report doesn't tell you anything. And that's what started the ball rolling.
So you brought in Dr. Baden?
I didn't bring him in. I don't, my memory's foggy and all this stuff, but they certainly knew who he was at the time. Right. So I don't know how, I don't remember how he was brought in, but he was also a contributor at Fox something. What started it was I read this coroner's report and I thought, this is ridiculous. And I'm not a pathologist.
The guy who was helping Dr. Baden, this didn't come out at the trial. It came out a little bit at a pre-trial.
He worked at Fox.
He worked at Fox, and then he ended up going to ABC and got some kind of plastic surgery. He was a producer and charged it on his company credit card, so he got fired.
I don't know that. That's information for me. Once he left here, I don't know what happened to him.
But he took video and pictures during the autopsy and tried to sell them to the Girls Gone Wild producer.
My memories that's pretty wild. Memories.
The entire case is full of weird little side stories and people trying to capitalize, really, and many of them in some disgusting ways.
It's I don't know whether he did try to sell it or not. I don't remember, frankly, what we were able to use and not use on our show. And I don't, all I remember from that sort of stage of it was that I read the coroner's report, and I was stunned that satisfied everybody about Kathleen Savio, and I just thought it should be further investigated. But anyway, yeah, thanks. Right, you're welcome. All right, so tell me, when will this appeal likely be heard?
Well, we're waiting for a date to be set for oral argument in the appeal, which I expect will be sometime May or June, and then who knows how long it's going to take. As far as the new case, he's got what they call a preliminary hearing, so a probable cause hearing on the 3rd of March. I doubt if they're going to go ahead and actually do a probable cause hearing. They'll probably present the case to a grand jury and indict him, and we'll see what happens from there.
Why didn't they do that to begin with? Why did they, if they intended to do what we call grand jury original, at least that's what we'll call it here, why did they do what they've just done the last week or two? Why didn't they just send it to a grand jury to begin with?
Send it to a grand jury, indict them, and then arrest them and bring them in? No clue. No clue.
I don't have it either. Anyway, well, we will, as you know, be watching. Steve Greenberg, defense attorney from Chicago, has been very gracious to join us here on Greta Talk, and it's never dull being a criminal defense attorney, as you obviously can tell talking to Steve.
It's a fun job. Every day is different.
Every day is different. Anyway, thank you, Steve, and to the listeners, remember, we're always adding to the Greta Talk collection. You can get the latest ones or catch up on the Greta Talk sessions you've missed at GretaWire.com/podcast, on GretaTalk.com, and we're always available on iTunes, TuneIn, and Stitcher, and of course, watch On the Record on the Fox News Channel at 7 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday.